Amazing love exposed. The maid's hidden gesture left the millionaire transformed and speechless. Jack Parker sat at his sleek mahogany desk, fingers dancing over the keyboard, the light from multiple screens illuminating his stern face. Numbers poured onto the spreadsheets in a relentless stream, a digital tide where he found solace. Yet amidst the wealth, there was an aching void. He hadn't seen his daughter Chloe in days, their conversations reduced to terse exchanges. The chime of his phone broke through the silence, a message from his assistant. "Chloe wants us to hire a new maid." Jack sighed, mentally categorizing her request as just another irritation in the nuances of managing his tech empire. The thought of sharing space with someone else, especially with an immigrant who likely didn't understand his world or his numbers, filled him with distaste. Yet he felt the pressure build, the glances from Chloe, the barely concealed contempt. Did she want a friend in the maid, or was it yet another plea for attention? The rift between them widened, responsibilities colliding with neglected emotions. Chloe was all fire, her youthful energy clashing against Jack's cold pragmatism. She'd matured, but instead of softening him, his hardened demeanor drove her away. The grasp of financial success strained him. He didn't just carry the weight of his fortune. He felt painfully aware of the absence of genuine connection. That was his sanctuary, the bottom lines and quarterly earnings. Yet his internal struggle lamented every step he took away from Chloe. Days passed, the air thick with unspoken words. As the summer sun blazed through the sprawling mansion windows, Jack found himself increasingly absorbed in work, yet tinged by an unsettling guilt. The moment Maria arrived, Chloe beamed, hopeful that perhaps the new hire could bridge the chasm. Jack's initial impression was a blend of bias and judgment. She were encapsulated in the promise of hard work, yet he couldn't shake the superiority that came with his status. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Yet he caught sights of Maria on video calls with her son, an authentic warmth uncharacteristic of his lavish life. Veiled memories flashed, his own parents struggling, perseverance blooming through adversity. They were immigrants once, too. Jack's resentment seethed against the ill-defined pedestal he stood on, oscillating between envy and disdain for those who couldn't afford to pull away from the grind. The house felt heavier, tensions rising sharply as Chloe sought solace in shared art lessons with Maria. The evening they discovered Maria's hidden artistic talent. An exquisite painting emerged, vibrant colors swirling together like shared hopes threading through isolation. Jack stumbled across the piece but was met with a harsh dichotomy: heathens in fray or a genuine boon. The prospect of selling it lit the fire of a moral dilemma within him, supporting someone whom he secretly regarded as beneath him. The clash within him grew like an ominous thundercloud. Could he step down from the fortress of wealth that insulated him? Did he dare bridge this yawning chasm? Did he dare confront the echo of his negligence towards Chloe? As Jack's mind whirled, the tension mounted, a pressure cooker of unresolved issues. Would he cling to his biases, risking losing Chloe forever? Or would he finally acknowledge the value of connection over status? In that moment, the choice was painfully clear yet overwhelmingly daunting, leaving Jack teetering on the precipice of a profound emotional revelation, filled with uncertainty and longing. The chilling doubt continued to creep in, and the question remained: would his next move lead to reconciliation or deeper isolation? Jack's heart pounded as he sat in the oppressive quiet of his office. The gilded frame of wealth that had once seemed a shield now echoed with emptiness, each successful project amplifying the void between him and Chloe. He could not ignore it any longer. If Maria's artistic expressions were reshaping Chloe's life, wouldn't it stand to reason that embracing Maria could also mend the fractured relationship with his daughter? He glanced at his digital clock, time ticking down as the seconds morphed into reminders of his failures. Was the distance between him and Chloe merely an outcome of his relentless pursuit of success? He felt a compulsion to reconnect, but was drowned by doubt. Could he even relate to what Chloe had shared with Maria? These thoughts ignited a spark of determination amid the storm cloud within. The next morning, Jack decided he would host a gathering under the soft lighting of the mansion's grand living room. It would be informal, just Maria, Chloe, and him. This was his play, a chance to alter the course of their relationship. He scribbled down invitations, his mind racing with the conflicting emotions of cause and effect. As he placed the printed notes on the kitchen island, he watched Maria move effortlessly, her hands crafting breakfast while engaging with Chloe. An echo of their laughter resonated through the airy space, contrasting sharply with Jack's rigid demeanor. He cleared his throat, startling both women. "Hey, I thought we could have a little get-together tonight, just us." His words fell flat, heavily laden with awkwardness. Chloe looked up, a flicker of surprise crossing her features, but it faded quickly, replaced by hesitance. "Sure, Dad. What's the occasion?" I thought we could bond, all three of us." Jack's attempt at levity felt forced. He felt an urgency, a subconscious desire to rectify past mistakes through this simple act. But would it be enough? Later that day, as he prepared for the gathering, he caught a glimpse of Chloe adjusting Maria's newly painted artwork on the mantel. The colors swirled vibrantly, evoking fragments of warmth. It spoke of hope and connection, a striking reminder of what had been missing. As he studied the painting, layers of conflict stirred within him. Was he so blinded by his wealth that he had neglected the immense potential of his relationships? The evening unfolded with tentative introductions and nervous laughter, the three seated amidst the soft glow of candles lining the table. Conversation flowed but felt halting, the air thick with unspoken words. Jack raised his glass, ready to toast to their new beginning, a decision solidified by a determination wrapped in uncertainty, to new connections. He felt a need to elaborate, to peel back layers. Sometimes we lose sight of what's really important. He shifted his gaze from Chloe to Maria, daring to embed vulnerability within his tone. "I have been so focused on making money that, well, I've lost touch with my daughter. The real currency is relationships, right?" Chloe's eyes locked onto his. Shock was evident, but her expression softened as if an unseen weight began to lift. Jack's vulnerability sparked a glint of hope. Perhaps they stood at the threshold of redefining their relationship. Maria, astutely perceptive, broke the lingering silence. "Art teaches us to express emotions we often forget. Maybe it could help you both." Jack swallowed hard. What did Maria know about the depth of his failures? The road ahead needed more than words. It required action. Should he take the plunge and explore the vulnerabilities he had long bottled up? As laughter mingled with shared stories, Jack's apprehensions began to wane, replaced by something profoundly unsettling: the urge to cultivate authenticity. Could he truly embrace this journey? The commitment to foster deeper realms of connection? Doubt flickered. In this moment of fragile equilibrium, he recognized the complexity of his decision. But deeper challenges lingered in the shadows. Would the past haunt him? Or could he turning this newfound awareness into a stepping stone for reconciliation? The question loomed large, urging him to confront buried truths about himself and those around him. Before Jack could settle the storm of thoughts roaring in his mind, his phone buzzed violently on the table, echoing ominous vibrancy in the warm room. With his heart racing, he reached for it. The screen flashed a message that would change everything. Someone from his past had resurfaced, carrying burdens he'd long forgotten. Would this revelation help or hinder his attempt to redefine his present? The room fell into an uneasy silence as Jack stared at the phone, the glowing screen burning into his retinas. It was a message from Sarah, an old colleague and confidant from the early days of his career, the days when ambition was just an untainted spark, rather than a consuming inferno. Her presence had been a guiding light, illuminating paths he had chosen to overlook in the fog of wealth and prestige. As memories washed over him, unwanted but powerful, Jack's heart raced, each beat echoing with the weight of nostalgia and trepidation. "Dad, are you okay?" Chloe's voice cut through the haze, lifting his gaze from the screen. She was watching him, concern etched across her brow. For a moment he had forgotten where he was, lost in a storm of self-reproach and forgotten connections. "Yeah, just work stuff," he lied, the words feeling heavy on his tongue. Jack tried to paint on a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Maria was astute, and her eyes narrowed as she observed the interplay between father and daughter. "You know, sometimes the past has a way of catching up with us when we least expect it," she ventured thoughtfully, her voice gentle. His facade faltered. She was right. How could he face Chloe and their future without confronting what had driven them apart in the first place? Was it time to reclaim his narrative? Or would opening the floodgates drown him in regret? "I think I need to respond to this," Jack murmured, breaking eye contact as he typed a reply. Each keystroke carried the potential to unravel decades of his carefully constructed image. Could he afford to take the risk? A rush of adrenaline fueled his fingers, and he hit send before his doubt could seize control. Chloe and Maria exchanged glances, unspoken questions spiraling in the atmosphere. As he set the phone down, Jack felt an unexpected wave of vulnerability wash over him. He couldn't retreat into the cocoon of his wealth anymore. This was real life, raw and unfiltered. "Dad, are you really going to talk to her?" Chloe finally asked, her tone a mixture of curiosity and caution. Jack inhaled deeply, drawing clarity from the supportive energy surrounding them. "It's time I embrace the part of my life I've avoided, Chloe. Maybe Sarah can help me understand things I've been running from," he admitted, a surprising steadiness in his voice. "Or maybe she can help us," Maria suggested softly, echoing the thread of hope that had begun to weave through the conversation. "You both have been so entangled in your own layers of disappointment. What if this is a chance to move forward together?" His heart clenched at the thought of it, imbuing that connection with meaning rather than fear. Did he have anything left to salvage after all these years? Could his professional relationships, marred by neglect, still contribute to his personal growth? The conversation shifted as Chloe grew more receptive, but doubt still lingered like specters in Jack's mind. He had suppressed his emotions for so long, shielded by the insulating walls of success. Reaching out meant an acceptance of accountability. It meant confronting the ghost of the man he used to be. As laughter slowly began to weave back into the room, he embraced the warmth of the moment, finding bits of joy among his tangled thoughts. Yet, his phone jolted again with more notifications, drawing his attention. Each beep felt like a reminder of the world beyond this fragile intimacy they were forming. Was the message from Sarah just the beginning, or would it crumble the new bond he and Chloe were rebuilding? Jack felt a familiar pull of dread gripping him. He was standing at a precipice, balancing vulnerability with the guarded instincts of a businessman. Would this be a leap of faith or a nosedive into chaos? With the phone buzzing incessantly on the table, he hesitated again, weighing the impact of delving into past connections. What lay in the shadows of his choices? Tomorrow would come, and the answer would demand his attention. But was he ready to face what waited? Or would he recoil into the safety of silence once more? The tension hung heavily in the air, whispering of impending revelations. The next morning, Jack's resolve wavered as he sat at the kitchen table, the sunlight pouring in with the same unwavering brightness that illuminated the choices he had to make. The warm, comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee did little to ease the tightness in his chest. Instead, it served as a reminder that life continued to move forward, indifferent to the turmoil nestling inside him. He stared at his phone, waiting for a response to his message, contemplating whether the strength he felt last night was genuine or merely a fleeting emotion. Every tick of the clock pulled him deeper, revealing the layers he had avoided for so long. Could he confront old chapters and still protect his present? Chloe entered the room, her usual morning cheer contrasting starkly with his internal chaos. "Got any plans today, Dad?" The question was innocent yet loaded, potential hanging in the air like an unspoken agreement between them. Jack attempted to muster confidence, slipping into the role of the supportive father. "I was thinking of catching up with an old friend," he replied, cautiously gauging her reaction. "Oh, exciting. Is it someone I know?" Her eyes sparkled with curiosity, and for a moment, he was transported back to days when their conversations were effortless, unburdened by the shadows of expectation. "Maybe," he said, deflecting while his mind raced, a battle between truth and concealment. After Chloe dashed off to prepare for her day, Jack leaned against the kitchen counter, wrestling with the importance of this new direction. Every fiber of his being urged him to put it off, to shove the phone aside, and pretend like nothing had changed. But sitting in his wealth, detached from his deeper self for so long, had become suffocating. He slipped back into his own mind, realizing that he had built a fortress, yet he allowed people to remain locked outside. The tension of unprocessed feelings tightened around him, squeezing away the comfort he had mistaken for security. Was this really living, or was it merely existing while remaining fragmented? Moments turned to hours as the phone sat still on the counter. Jack knew he'd have to choose between staying cocooned in the facade he had created or tearing it down in pursuit of something authentically less certain. Feeling an urgency swell within him, there was no more time for idle contemplation. He picked up the phone and opened the thread with Sarah. With a deep inhale, he began to type, his fingers hesitating over the screen as he processed the weight of the words he was about to send. "Hey Sarah, it's Jack. I'd really like to reconnect, it's been too long." The simplicity of the message belied the internal war raging inside him. What dared to come next? Might this bond, once so integral to his career, provide the insight needed to reconcile his past? Just as he was about to hit send, a notification flashed across the screen. It was a response from Sarah, immediate and electric. Jack's pulse quickened, blanking out the world around him. How had she reacted so quickly? Did she feel the same urgency to heal from the past? "Jack, I've missed talking to you. I'd love to catch up. When are you free?" The invitation hummed in the air, and Jack felt the walls he had built begin to tremble. This was not just about a meeting. It was a signal that he could step outside his comfort zone and dance with self-discovery, a pathway back to who he used to be and who he could choose to become. But what if the encounter dredged up emotions he wasn't prepared to face? What if it shattered not just his past, but the fragile current moments he'd begun to cultivate with Chloe? He pressed send before he could rethink it, feeling a rush of liberation mixed with fear. The message was out. Now there was no way back. He glanced at the kitchen clock again, anxious to see the minutes slip by, ushering in an opportunity that could change everything. Would he face this meeting with a heart willing to embrace vulnerability, or would self-doubt strangle his intentions before they could take root? As the seconds ticked away, a new fear emerged. What if this time he truly uncovered who he was beneath the layers? The prospect loomed large, stirring something within him, a sense of purpose rekindling after years of neglect. And just as that thought began to solidify, the phone buzzed in his hand again. Sarah's response awaited. Jack hesitated for a mere heartbeat, the stakes rising higher than he had anticipated. Perhaps he was standing on the edge of something profound, a new beginning lurking just beyond the horizon. Would he find the courage to leap, or would he retreat into the safety of his past? The answer loomed closer, ready to expose his very soul. Jack's heart raced as he stared at the screen. Sarah's message felt almost electric, a lifeline thrown into uncertain waters. With every fiber of his being urging him to brace for the meeting, he felt a mixture of excitement and dread. Sarah had been more than just a former colleague. She had been a mentor, a friend, and at one point the person who believed in him when he had little faith in himself. But that faith had come with complications, unearthing emotional scars and bitter memories he had tucked away. He finally exhaled, dismissing the wave of anxiety that washed over him. They had once shared dreams and ambitions, laughter and pointed critiques about their industry. He opened her message and began typing a response, his fingers moving nearly faster than his thoughts. "How about tomorrow afternoon?" he wrote, his heart pounding with each word. He pressed send and braced himself for the potential fallout of his decision. The action itself, revealed a shifting tide. He was choosing to engage rather than retreat. After a few moments, the tool of communication chimed back with her eager response. "Perfect. Can't wait to see you." The simplicity of her words ignited a spark of hope alongside a surge of old apprehensions. Jack could already envision their meeting, familiar cafe, lightly buzzing with the sounds of life, the warmth of shared history filling the air. However, beneath that familiarity lay another layer of uncertainty. Would he have the capacity to tackle the emotional terrain they had navigated together before? As he prepared for the meeting, Jack felt a familiar pattern emerging. The hours leading to their rendezvous crawled by, each tick of the clock echoing the questions swirling in his mind. Would he be able to articulate the personal growth he had undergone? Or would the cracks in his facade be too apparent? Doubt gnawed at him throughout the evening. There was a rawness in revisiting old bonds, and memories flooded back, both warm and fraught with difficulties. He snagged a moment with Chloe before bed, engaging in a playful banter about a movie they'd seen recently. Each laugh emanating from her parsed the tension within him. Watching Chloe, so vibrant and full of life, made him ponder anew. What kind of man did he aspire to be for her? Could he break free from the remnants of his past to become a better father, a more complete version of himself? As he lay in bed, the shadows stretched across the walls like an uninvited guest, overwhelming him with the weight of his choices. The possibility of change seemed both exhilarating and terrifying. At dawn, Jack rose earlier than usual. He prepared coffee and kept the radio low, letting the hushed sounds embrace him while he wrestled with his thoughts. Staring at his own reflection, he recognized the man looking back was still the one who had chased success, but perhaps, just perhaps, he could learn to pursue authenticity instead. He dressed meticulously, each article a shield against the apprehensions writhing within him. His phone buzzed just as he stepped into the living room. A new message confirming their meeting time. He breathed a little easier, realizing that Sarah wanted to reconnect too. But was he ready to face the possibility that the past could still weigh heavy on his heart? The clock edged towards the designated hour, and before he drove away he looked back at his house, a place of comfort and quiet, but also of constriction. As he merged onto the main road, a scenario played out in his mind, visualizing the moment Sarah would walk through the cafe door. Would he find solace in the conversation, or would it devolve into chaos? The boundaries of his past began to feel tenuous, and in that blurring he saw a daunting truth emerge. Nothing could remain the same, and he could unlock a more authentic version of himself, ready to confront the burdens that had long held him captive. As he parked outside the cafe and stepped out into the light, he was left contemplating the risks of renewal. Was he prepared to welcome whatever guilt and anxiety might surface? With every step toward the door, he felt the dawning realization that this was not just a meeting. It was the beginning of a deeper exploration into his own vulnerability, a step toward confronting the very fabric of who he was and who he wished to become. With a firm grip on the door's handle, he stepped inside, breathing in the ambiance filled with potential. What awaited him on the other side held the promise of transformation, or the shadows of retreat. Would he face the challenges head-on, or would he again slip back into the familiar safety of his carefully constructed walls? As he approached their table, a new anxiety crept in. The encounter with his past was about to redefine him. Jack stepped into the cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloping him like a comforting blanket, yet the warmth doing little to settle the restlessness within. He scanned the room, looking for Sarah, restless energy coursing through him, amplifying his apprehension. Was he truly ready to dismantle the walls he had so carefully erected around himself? He found her seated at their usual table, a spot they'd claimed long ago during their days of brainstorming under the caffeine-fueled haze of productivity. She looked up and smiled, and in that instant, he felt the weight of past laughter and shared ambitions settle like an old friend on his shoulders. But there was also an edge to that smile, a silent question lingering in the air. Was he still the same Jack she once knew? "Hey," he said, forcing a smile back, the corners of his mouth trembling with the effort. He slid into the chair opposite her, noting the way she studied him with an intensity that made him uneasy. "Jack, it's been a while," she replied, her tone warm yet probing as if she were assessing if he'd truly changed or if this was merely a facade. He wanted to dive into it, to acknowledge the distance time had created, yet the lump in his throat held him back. "Yeah, it has." The honesty of that simple statement surprised him, but it felt like a small victory against his doubts. They exchanged small talk, sketches of lives lived apart, yet Jack felt a nagging pull to address the unspoken. It was as if an uncharted tide threatened to swallow him whole, but there was also the exhilarating promise of self-revelation nestled within that uncertainty. "Jack, I've always believed in your potential," Sarah finally said, her voice softer, almost like a gentle reminder. "But I'm curious. Do you believe in it yourself yet?" The question stung, cutting through his facade like a brightly lit blade. A whirlwind of doubt clawed at the edges of his mind. Had he truly embraced his potential, or was he still just the man chasing shadows, hoping to validate himself through the hollow echoes of success? I've been trying," he admitted, his voice a humble whisper. "But it's hard to shake off the past." "Everyone has a past," she said firmly. "The key is not to let it define you." He considered her words, a beacon shining through the fog of his insecurities. In that moment, he glimpsed the person he wanted to become, free from the cumulative scars that had bound him. But could he really let go? "Have you ever thought about what you wanted to do with your life beyond the daily grind?" Sarah pressed, her eyes narrowing slightly, as if urging Jack to dig deeper into himself, to confront the truths he had hidden. Jack felt exposed, the raw vulnerability tightening his chest. Yet he realized that perhaps this confrontation was necessary. "I want to find fulfillment, to make choices that resonate with who I am rather than just what's expected," he said, the ember of newly formed resolve igniting within him. "Then start now," she encouraged, leaning forward. "Recognize your fears, acknowledge them, use them as stepping stones instead of barriers." As he sat there, the cafe buzzing around them like a hive of creativity, Jack's mind raced with possibilities. He could see the tenuous threads of his past slowly unraveling, revealing a more vibrant tapestry of who he could be. But with every unraveling thread came the potential for new complications, new fears. "Tell me," Sarah coaxed, "what do you want to accomplish this year?" His mind faltered for a moment, teetering on a precipice of vulnerability. "I want to reconnect with my creativity," he found himself saying, the sentence unfurling like a flag waving in the wind. "I want to write again, to share my voice instead of letting it drown in silence." There was a gleam of approval in Sarah's eyes, yet also a hint of concern. "And what will it take for you to do that?" Questions cascaded through Jack's mind like unstoppable raindrops. Time, confidence, and the eradication of self-doubt danced tantalizingly close, yet still felt just out of reach. He took a deep breath, decisions brewing in his chest, and began to realize that this meeting wasn't just a casual catch-up. It was a leap into uncharted waters, an opportunity to reconstruct his narrative piece by piece. Could he bear the thought of each reconstruction, though, knowing that some pieces might shatter completely? As the conversation continued, Jack felt his walls waver. Would he muster the strength to face his emotions and articulate his fears to Sarah? The horizon looked bright but fraught with challenges. He was ready for change, yet the specter of doubt lurked close, waiting for an opening. The moment had come to confront his inner demons, and the decision loomed like a dark cloud. Would he allow himself to share this truth, or would he slip back into the safety of silence? Each unresolved question weighed heavily, yet there was also an exhilarating promise of transformation, whispering just beneath the surface. Jack leaned forward, heart pounding, ready to expose the layers he had shielded for far too long. "I need to be honest with you." But then, like a writing prompt from fate, the words teetered at the edge of his lips, poised to spill forth, hoping to cleave the weight of the past that had clung to him for far too long. Would he find his voice, or would he falter yet again? Jack's breath caught in his throat as his mind clashed with his heart, the inner war reaching a tipping point. Sarah's unwavering gaze bore down on him, as if she were peeling back the layers of his carefully constructed identity, layer by layer. He opened his mouth ready to unearth the truth festering in the shadows of his psyche, but doubt curled around him like choking vines. The cafe buzzed on, patrons lost in their own worlds, completely unaware of the tempest brewing at this small table. He could feel the warmth of their previous conversations slipping into the haze of uncertainty. What was it he had tried so hard to ignore? Why was he so terrified of embracing his own desires? "Jack, you don't have to share everything all at once," Sarah said, sensing his struggle, yet encouraging him to break through the fear. It was that very understanding that made him feel seen and utterly exposed. What if I can't write again? What if I've lost my touch forever? The words burst forth before he could filter them, an avalanche of vulnerability rolling over the remnants of his guarded demeanor. "Then you learn," she said simply, "and the first step is admitting it. You say you want to find fulfillment. What are you willing to risk for it?" Jack felt a familiar tightness in his chest, the weight of anticipated failure pressing down on him. The idea of pursuing his passion ignited a flicker of desire but was quickly extinguished by the haunting echoes of self-doubt. "Risk?" he echoed, the notion resonating yet unsettling. He wasn't a stranger to investing in projects, yet investing in himself felt like an insurmountable leap. The stakes felt infinitely higher. "Creating anything worth having involves risk," Sarah said pointedly. Even a simple choice like this meeting. Suddenly a revelation surged within Jack as if a dam had cracked. "I want to create something real, something that matters." It felt like a lifeline he had reached for in darkness, but something about naming it made the prospect terrifyingly real. "Then do it," she pressed. "Start small. Commit to a daily writing practice. Don't focus on being perfect. Focus on being honest." Her voice was steady, yet urging. Such faith was unnerving. Could he really reclaim his passion? Paralyze himself into complacency or dare to step into that unknown? Each word from Sarah stitched threads of determination into his frayed tapestry of fear. "What if I fail?" Jack asked again, a tad softer this time, acknowledging the truth laced in vulnerability without shying away from it. "Failures are just stepping stones," she replied, her smile an inviting challenge. "They're part of the journey. Embrace them." An unexpected warmth blossomed inside him. He had invested so much time erecting barriers, only now to be faced with the reality that those same barriers were self-imposed chains. He could either continue to tread water, always paddling against the tide, or he could swim enthusiastically in the current toward something promising, even if dangerous. Jack leaned back, allowing the moment to settle. He could envision himself writing again, words spilling onto a page like his heartbeat. It wouldn't be easy. The dark voice of self-doubt would continue to creep in. But maybe this time, he wouldn't shy away. Maybe he would fight back with every line he penned. "Okay," he finally said, the word tinged with newfound resolve. "I'll commit to writing. I'll find my voice. But it won't be easy." "It never is," Sarah said, her nod affirming his decision. "And that's the beauty of it." Jack smiled at the very thought. Confusion ebbed while courage grew. They delved deeper into possibilities, ideas weaving and intertwining as the cafe atmosphere morphed from discomfort to a crucible of creativity. Each spoken word added to the mosaic of what he could become rather than shrinking away. But then, a startling thought flashed through his mind, a sharp pang of realization that nearly knocked the wind from his lungs. What if it wasn't just the words he had to confront? Could he face the deeper emotions that drove his writing? What if unearthing them meant he would have to confront painful memories, the very ghosts he had buried to keep himself safe? Jack's hand trembled slightly as he set his cup down. Some truths were waiting in the shadows, maybe more daunting than the potential failure of a blank page. It was time to pull the curtain back, not just on his creative ambitions, but on everything that had held him prisoner all this time. As he sat there, overly conscious of the upcoming journey ahead, Jack felt the pages of his life waiting to be written. Would the raw truth propel him toward the future he longed for, or bury him under its weight? "Sarah, there's another layer beneath the surface I haven't addressed," he began, realizing he was inching toward a confrontation that would challenge everything he thought he knew about himself. And with that acknowledgement, the direction of their conversation shifted in an uncharted territory. Would he have the courage to unearth those hidden fears entwined with his creativity? Jack felt an electric buzz run through him as he contemplated Sarah's reassurance. The weight of his uncertainty pressed against him like a physical barrier, but admitting the need to dig deeper stirred something long dormant inside, an urgency to reconcile with his past. "Okay, we're in this together. Let's unearth what's hidden," he spoke, his voice more resolute than he felt. Shadows loomed in his mind, flickering like old film, memories of experiences that had shaped him but also haunted him. "Good," Sarah replied, her tone soothing yet firm. "Let's start with your writings. What themes keep recurring? What do you keep running from?" Jack closed his eyes briefly, casting his thoughts back to the crumpled pages of half-finished stories at home. They whispered of heartache, relationships crumbling, moments of joy tinged with dread. "Everything I write seems to circle around loss. It's always there, lurking." "Loss can be powerful," she said thoughtfully. "It can also be freeing. What if you channel that into your writing? It's a part of you after all." Fingers tapping against the table, Jack hesitated. "But facing it means confronting the mess I've created. Some memories feel too raw." "Then that's where we'll start. Embrace it," she urged, her eyes steady. "The only way out is through, right?" He nodded, though the thought of exposing himself to pain made him queasy. Could he truly craft art from the ashes of his emotions? What if his words could bring to light the very memories he wished to bury? Taking a deep breath, he ventured, "I can't help but recall my parents' divorce, how their bitter exchanges left echoes in the house. I wrote about it once, but I pulled the story apart because it felt too heavy." The truth sliced through his defenses. A wave of vulnerability crashed over him, yet it ignited a flicker of something brave, a sense of recognition in expressing the chaos instead of hiding it. He still felt the echoes of their arguments and the loneliness he had absorbed like a sponge. "Then let's untangle it," Sarah suggested with encouraging intensity. "Don't just write about the events. Write about how they made you feel, about the little moments, and how they shaped your view on love and trust." Jack opened his eyes and met her gaze. He saw an unwavering belief reflected there, and it kindled a hesitant flame of hope. "What if it doesn't come out beautifully?" he asked, caught between fear and a burgeoning sense of purpose. "Art doesn't have to be beautiful, it has to be honest," Sarah replied, her conviction almost palpable. "Allowing yourself to be vulnerable is what will connect you to your readers. What you fear most may be your greatest asset." Courage trickled in as they discussed potential frameworks for his writing practice. Jack could chart out daily sessions for which topics to explore, the emotional shade he desired to peel back. Each piece faced him like a tantalizing puzzle, a language he hadn't yet learned. "Perhaps I can start with a few memories, writing them without worrying about the order," he mused aloud, the chaos starting to resolve into a clearer image. "A journal. No one would see it, even if it reads like a mess at first." "That sounds like an excellent plan," Sarah smiled. "Keep it close, it's yours to shape. Let each entry guide you toward what's buried." With resolve building in his heart, Jack felt lighter. It was still daunting, the prospect of confronting memories that disheveled his emotional landscape. "I'll be honest, I'm terrified." "Good," she said, leaning in slightly. "Being terrified means that you're finally on the edge of growth. You're facing the challenge head-on." The cafe, once a world filled with noise, had become a sanctuary where possibilities flourished. Jack knew each line he wrote would either expose wounds or bring forth healing. Both paths had their own dangers. As they wrapped up their conversation, Jack realized he was at a precipice. Commitment to exploration meant stepping beyond comfort, requiring introspection that could potentially lead to discomfort or clarity. He felt breathless at the threshold. "What if what I dig up changes everything I believed about myself?" he questioned, the weight of curiosity teetering on the edge of fear. "Then it changes everything for the better," Sarah replied, her confidence reinvigorating him. Allow that evolution. Don't resist it. Jack stole a glance down at the table, a whirlpool of thoughts swirling in his head. Could he rise, facing not just words but the truths that lay entwined within them? Each realization felt like a stepping stone laid across an uncharted river. As he prepared to take his first step into this new chapter, a final thought echoed through his mind, a truth veiled beneath layers of fear and anticipation. Confronting his past could finally unveil an authentic voice he had long silenced. Jack's heart raced at the prospect. The moment was poised for him to brink forward into the next realm of his writing journey. Would he be able to leap into the unknown, where redemption mingled with revelation? The prospect both excited and terrified him. Would he emerge whole from this reckoning, or would he be broken further? The yet untold pages of his life beckoned, leaving him at the threshold of a transformative choice. The time had come for Jack to face not only his writing, but also the shadows of his own existence. Jack sat alone in his cluttered apartment, pages of his unwritten narrative scattered like so many hurtful memories. The air was heavy with the scent of stale coffee, and the quiet hum of city life outside felt distant, almost alien. The safe cocoon of the cafe, with Sarah's firm encouragement, seemed to evaporate the moment he crossed his threshold. He opened his laptop, the black screen mirroring a void he was all too familiar with. His fingers hovered above the keys, a battleground of hesitation. Each moment that slipped by felt like a haunting reminder of all he hadn't said, all he hadn't faced. He grasped the reality. Writing wasn't simply about crafting words, it was about confronting the pile of emotions that clung to him like a second skin. Jack turned his attention to the crumpled pages lying to the side, tales he'd abandoned mid-breath, stories that held more than mere plots. They were lifelines to a boy who had long struggled against visibility, standing in the shadows cast by others' turmoil. With a deep breath, he recalled his mother's tears, the sharpness of raised voices, and the solitude that wrapped around him those nights after the slam of a door echoed through the house. The resurfacing memories ignited a flame of resolve. He opened a new document, the cursor blinking at him, mocking his inaction. He had convinced himself that none of this mattered, that burying the truth was easier than the fight. But as Sarah said, the only way out was through. As his fingers finally began to type, a confession spilled forth raw and unfiltered. It was the silence that hurt the most. The absence of laughter became my prison, and I built walls against the pain, believing I could shield myself from both the memories and the subsequent feeling of drowning in my own despair. Jack paused, surprise washing over him. The emotions he had skirted around for so long surfaced with clarity. He was revealing layers he'd kept buried, but somehow, amidst the terror, there was catharsis. Each keystroke untangled pieces of himself he didn't know were still tied up. Yet with revelation came fear. What if facing this truth only left him more vulnerable, more exposed? The guilt of dragging long-buried feelings into the light weighed heavily on him. But wasn't that the point? Writing, he realized, would reveal not only his struggles but also the strength that came with acknowledging them. Over the next few days, Jack formed a ritual. Morning sessions would dawn with the sun spilling through the grime-covered windows, illuminating shadows within his heart. He wrote about his parents, their dreams that faded and fractured his young ideals of love. With each memory unearthed, he could feel a raw power surging through him, a combination of pain and insight that he had previously underestimated. Bravery began to replace shame. Jack tapped into the textures of those heartbreaks, dissecting them like the layers of well-constructed prose he admired in others. The reshaping of his past no longer felt like an act of betrayal, but an embrace, one where he sought to make peace with the fragmentation of his upbringing. But something unexpected nagged at him, the desire to share these revelations but tethered by the fear of judgment. What if he became a target, exposing himself to a world that was less forgiving than he hoped? Could he withstand the weight of any backlash? One evening, as uncertainty threatened to overwhelm him again, he found a quiet zeal with an unexpected spark. A name, Emma, struck him, someone from his past whose laughter had been a balm. Where was she now? They hadn't spoken in years, But the hint of that connection lingered like a melody. What if he reached out, shared a fragment of his new journey, and exposed the truths he'd grappled with? This thought ignited a sense of urgency. Perhaps there was value, even healing, in sharing not only his echoes of loss, but also how those echoes intertwined with others. Maybe her journey had intersected with his in a way he could never have foreseen. Jack's hand drifted to his phone, hovering there for an agonizing moment before he finally typed a simple message. "Hey, Emma. I've been thinking about the past, and I'd love to reconnect. There's so much I'd like to share." As he hit send, a breath escaped him. Anticipation and regret washed over like waves on a shoreline. Would this bolt of courage lead to something valuable, or ripple out into an unknown abyss? The screen lit in front of him like the portal to a new chapter. Jack was ready to dive back into his own narrative, facing the unknown, arms open. As the eerie quiet settled around him once again, he found peace in the cracks of uncertainty. Maybe confronting his past would finally guide him toward the beginning of a larger story, where vulnerability could bloom into authenticity. But now, the tension hung in the air, solid yet intangible. Would Emma respond? Would this leap into vulnerability both anchor him to his past and set him free? Jack's heart raced as possibilities spiraled like ink in water, saturating the pages before him once more. The moment Jack received Emma's reply, a heady mix of elation and anxiety rushed through him. "I'd love to catch up, Jack. Let's meet soon." Simple words, yet they rocketed him back to a time when hope and connection relinquished the paralyzing grip of doubt. Today, he wasn't just looking for a conversation, he was seeking redemption, a way to anchor himself amid the turbulent seas of his emotional journey. He took an hour to prepare himself, meticulously selecting the cafe where they had spent so many afternoons laughing and discussing dreams. As the hour approached, Jack's heart thudded in rhythm with anticipation. This wasn't just about reconnecting, it was about affirming the progress he had made since beginning to peel back the layers of his past. When he saw Emma enter, a familiar warmth enveloped him, evoking memories adorned with sunlight and laughter. Time had shaped them both, her confidence radiant as ever, and yet his world had transformed in subtle, significant ways. Today, they would share more than memories. They would share the burdens they had borne in silence. "Jack, it's been too long," she greeted, her smile as genuine as he remembered. But now it held a nuance, a sense of shared understanding of life's messiness. "It has. I've missed this," he replied, gesturing to the table they had once claimed as their sanctuary. As they settled into conversation, Jack found himself revealing the very truths he had been hesitant to confront. He spoke of his writing endeavors, the struggle to face the ghosts of his childhood, and his tumultuous relationship with success. Emma listened, her empathy a freeing force, urging him to wander down pathways of vulnerability he had once vowed to avoid. "I've never felt more alive since I started writing," he admitted, his voice gaining strength. "It's like excavating pieces of myself buried under years of pretense." "It sounds like you're finally building a bridge to who you truly are," she encouraged. "It's brave, Jack. Not everyone can reconcile with their past the way you're doing. I realize that diving into those depths doesn't make me less of a man. It makes me truly human." As he spoke, the weight of his burdens felt lighter, like stones lifting from his soul. He had uncovered parts of himself that were scared and weary, but also incredibly resilient. "What's next for you?" Emma asked, her tone inviting yet probing, drawing him further from the shallow waters of small talk. "I want to publish a collection. Stories about loss, love, and redemption. I want to invite people into my journey to let them know they aren't alone." Jack's declaration struck a chord within him, echoing his new resolve to connect authentically with others. "And what if they don't understand? The fear of judgment is real," Emma challenged gently, her eyes steady and compelling. Jack nodded, feeling the familiar tug of self-doubt, but he pushed back. "It's a risk, but it's a risk I want to take. I'm done hiding. I want to share my truths and, hopefully, inspire others to do the same." As their conversation flowed, Jack marveled at how the past, once a treacherous current, had become a conduit for transformation. With every revelation, he felt more anchored to who he was becoming. And Emma's presence reminded him he wasn't alone on this path. When their meeting came to an end, Jack felt a strange mix of anxiety and exhilaration. "Meeting you today felt like a turning point," he said, sincerity flowing through each word. "You've come so far, Jack. Remember that," Emma replied, a warm smile gracing her lips. "And I can't wait to read what you create. Keep writing." As they parted ways, Jack stepped into the warmth of the sun, feeling invigorated and empowered. He had embraced the message of vulnerability Emma had encouraged. It was evident now that confronting personal truths and sharing them was more liberating than any achievement adorned with accolades or wealth. As he walked home, a realization cut through the noise of the city. He was no longer a man defined by his past failures or the weight of his financial empire. He had emerged as a storyteller, a seeker of truth, a conduit for connection. His writing became not just an act of creation but a platform for others who also bore the scars of lost hope. In the days that followed, Jack made a commitment to himself. He would carve out time for writing every morning without question. He would explore all that lay beneath the surface, giving life to his memories in a way that transformed the pain into art. This time his words would not linger in solitude. He would seek publication, daring to risk exposure. Finally, Jack was on the precipice of achieving something greater. Not just a collection of stories, but a bridge of vulnerability he could share with others. He would not just narrate his past, but write a future where authenticity became the cornerstone of connection. As he settled into his writing routine, Jack felt a serene confidence envelop him. This was the culmination of his journey. Here he was, not just a tech mogul or a father lost in aspiration, but a man who had faced fire and emerged stronger. The pursuit of understanding through writing became his new venture, carrying the potential to reshape lives, including his own. Jack had woven the threads of his past into a narrative waiting to be shared, a narrative of overcoming, a narrative of hope. Jack Parker had finally embraced his destiny, standing tall amidst the woven fabric of personal growth and self-acceptance. Now it was time for you to take action. Do not wait even one more second. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to help feed the algorithm and show your support for Tales of Transformation. Comment below your reactions and theories about this conclusion. Your engagement makes it all worth it. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this journey of personal overcoming. Your efforts matter. Let's spread the inspiration.